purpose of the exhibition is to try to explain to the public what particle physics is doing, and they've all heard about the discovery of the Higgs boson. So try and explain a little bit about the history of particle physics and how it's led up to this very important discovery.
Particle physics is the study of the most fundamental structure of matter. At the same time, it allows us to understand what happened in the very, very first moments after the Big Bang. So it's a very, very important subject. It's a fantastic subject, it's fascinating, and we hope that by this exhibition we'll be able to bring some of that excitement to some of the members of the public who come to visit it.
The Liverpool Particle Physics Group is one of the biggest groups in Britain, and it was formed many years ago by essentially James Chadwick, who worked on the nuclear matters during the war, and from that grew this very large particle physics group, which is deeply involved in all aspects of particle physics at CERN and in Japan and America.
The Liverpool Particle Physics Group is one of the major players in the UK, if not the world. It's really a very, very large particle physics group here at the university. We're involved in experiments at CERN. 3 of the 4 experiments at the LHC have Liverpool contributions, major Liverpool contributions. We have physicists who were involved in the discovery of the Higgs particle recently. We're also involved in experiments involving neutrinos in Japan and experiments in the United States, where we are going to measure very, very precisely the spin properties of the muon.
It's a very big group doing lots of things all in parallel, and there's only a little bit of what's happening on display here today.
When I retired, I got involved with the history. I've always been interested in the history of the department, and I got involved with the history and particularly with looking at the artifacts which had been kept, stored over many years. What actually happened was that I and the curator of this museum got together to look at these artifacts, and really none of them were labelled, or most of them weren't labelled, and it was just my job really, from my past experience, to decide what they were and when they had been used, and get them into some sort of order. At that time, it occurred to me, and I think to the curator as well, that we really needed to demonstrate these artifacts, and particularly to draw people's attention to the fact that we had 3 Nobel Prize winners associated with the department.
My contribution to the exhibition was, there were 3 really things. The first thing, I saved a lot of the exhibits from being thrown out and in skips, and I hid them away at a time when people didn't do that sort of thing, and I'm glad to say some of them are here now, which is great to see. I also helped to explain to the museum staff here about what particle physics was, because it's a very complicated subject. I tried to help them to understand the role of all of these bits of equipment and how they all fitted together. And then the final thing was to try and help write the posters and the captions around the place that try to explain what's happening, making them as simple as possible but accurate, which is quite a tricky thing to do.
What we did aim to do was then to jump right to the other end of the scene and see how these early developments had led to the present day. Try and make a link between the past and the present day. And hence this is why there is the latest thing, the Higgs boson and the LHC part of the exhibition.
My major contribution, apart from taking Leonie and Kirsty out to Geneva and making sure that they found their way to CERN without problems, my major contribution was whenever they needed something from the CERN end, like pictures or videos and so on, I basically made sure that those things were obtained and arrived on time.
My favourite part is the Ds from the 37-inch cyclotron. They were used by Chadwick during the war. They are of immense historical importance. He did the work that enabled, I'm afraid, the atomic bomb to be made, but nevertheless, in wartime conditions, his group, his team, measured the relevant numbers to an accuracy of 1%, which was incredibly impressive given the technique. It's also a nice example of how the role of research changes, because when the machine was being designed, it was being designed for medical physics. But then the war came along, it completely changed its role, and from that one grew this enormous study of nuclear physics and particle physics that has led on to the immense understanding we now have today of all the physics that makes the universe tick. So historically, it's an incredibly important exhibit, and I'm very, very pleased that it's here.
I think the H1 radial chamber here is absolutely fantastic. It looks brilliant. I also think the Hunting the Higgs game looks like a lot of fun, and I can see that being a major hit at the exhibition, and the Atlas 3D film is really amazing as well.